Hey guys, Evan from PC Gamer. I'm here at GDC 2013 in San Francisco with Piranha Games and Russ Bullock, the president of Piranha. How's it going, Russ?
Great, thanks for coming by.
Yeah, my pleasure. So you guys here are showing off MechWarrior Online, of course. It's an open beta. It's been an open beta since about October, the end of October. So that's about 5 months. And tell us, what the game looks like right now and what you're looking forward to in the next few months.
That's right. We've been in open beta since October 29th. And we have just an amazing group of fans that have been supporting us extremely well, testing the game for us, and bringing in a lot of new players, introducing them to just how great the MechWarrior play experience is. And we've been updating the game frequently. We were almost weekly patches up until the new year, and since the new year we've set it into a nice cadence of every 2 weeks, every second Tuesday we still patch the game. So the amount of content coming in is very fast and steady. It's both in content and in feature updates. So there's a new mech every single month. There's also a new hero mech every month, a new map every couple of months, features constantly. So I want to take just a couple minutes to explain just how far the product has come in the last 5 months. And then we'd love to share some details about kind of the roadmap to 1.0 or our launch.
Sounds good. Yeah, take it away.
Okay, so, well, first off, a big part of MechWarrior is the Mech Lab. And in MechWarrior, there's a lot of rules around how Mech Lab works. A little too much for a lot of people if they don't know a lot about BattleTech MechWarrior. So we've really simplified it, meaning all the rules are still in place. It's still, you need to make all your modifications work within the rule set, but you don't need to understand the rules. All you really need to understand is the color red and the color green. Red means bad, green means good, and when you pull a weapon off your mech, it'll immediately light up the different items in green that will fit on your mech. So it already makes all the calculations on the rules for you, so whether it's too heavy or all those great BattleTech rules, you don't really need to understand them. You just need to understand that this says green, I can put this weapon on now. And if you want the other details, they're all there. You look below and it says exactly why something will or will not work. We also just want to take the last couple minutes here to talk about things that we've done to make it a little easier for new users. Because MechWarrior is such a great, unique play experience that once someone comes in and spends a few hours, they're really hooked for life, it seems like. But there's a few little nuances about MechWarrior that you need to learn. So we've done a few things to help with that. First and foremost, we added what's called testing grounds. So not quite sure how to pilot a mech. I'm not sure really if you like the heat setup or the mech loadout you have. Go into testing grounds. You're in there by yourself. There's a few dummy mechs to shoot. Run around, see how your mech functions, set your weapon groups, and just learn how to pilot a battle mech. Learn those nuances of the throttle system or heat management or torso twist. In fact, we've done a couple of things to help with that even further, what we call new user controls. So traditionally, MechWarrior is about setting your throttle and forgetting about it. So your mech kind of moves along a little bit like it has a mind of its own. For the longtime players, this is second nature. For a brand new player, it's a little bit confusing. So we've added the option by default to make your throttle really a gas pedal system. So just WSAD, just like a shooter. So if you press W, you start going and you start pushing towards top speed. But once you let go of the W key, you slow back down and stop. So you can change that if you want to go back to the throttle set system. But for new players, this is a lot more intuitive. So that kind of there's a rundown of all the work we've been doing since open beta. Today we'd really like to share with you and all your readers and listeners that what we're going to be doing here moving forward towards launch. I guess what you'd call 1.0 launch. We are announcing a nice launch window of late summer this year. So the light is at the end of the tunnel. It's coming. There's some great features. Of course, we're going to update the game constantly between now and there, but there's 3 main features we want to discuss here today. First off, in the next 60-ish days, we're going to be going to full 12v12 matches. Right now, the game is 8 versus 8. The fans are really excited about this. You can imagine 33% more battle mechs on the field. You got a whole other lance per team, 4 more mechs per team. So that really opens up a lot of strategy, especially with these bigger maps we've been releasing now. You can afford to keep some mechs at your base to defend, send a few out to scout. There's a lot more mechs to go around. It's just going to be a lot of fun. And then next we have User Interface 2.0. So we've made a lot of improvements to the user interface, but there's still room for improvement, and especially for new players, making sure they only see the pertinent information at the right moment in time, and have a lot easier way of breadcrumbing those new players along with some achievements and various things that will come with the new user interface. So a complete revamp of the user interface for launch. And lastly, of course, the big daddy feature, Community Warfare. The feature that every fan's been wanting since we announced the game. We gave some details to PC Gamer back at the cover story about Community Warfare. Everybody wants it. And it's coming. It's coming for launch. So this, of course, is your faction-based gameplay. You can align yourself to your favorite house, like House Davian, House Kirida. Maybe you and your friends want to create a mercenary unit of your own and then fight for one of the great houses. There's still lone wolf options, but in every case, you get to affect the world around you, play for your faction, earn loyalty points, and ultimately, of course, the end result for the main aspect of Community Warfare is to battle over possession of planets, which then give you benefits in the game. And it's just everyone's too excited, to wait for Community Warfare. That really is the going to add a whole new level of depth to MechWarrior Online. So I'm going to pass some time over to our creative director, Brian Ekman, who can give you a little more detail about Community Warfare.
So we just heard from Russ that, sort of the 3 pillar features coming late summer, he said, namely among them being Community Warfare. Why don't you walk us through the state of Community Warfare right now and your guys' vision for it?
Right, well, Community Warfare is the umbrella that sits over top of the match play that we have currently. And so we're going to be adding in the ability for players to basically play at their level. So if you're a lone wolf player and you're not interested in being a part of a group, you can just go in and jump into the game right now as is and play that experience. Level up your character, build your resources, level up your mechs, earn money, and all kinds of stuff. Now, if you're somebody who wants to be part of a faction or a group but doesn't want all the responsibilities of, say, a guild or having to be online at certain times to play, faction plays for you. So now what you can do is you can actually join a house or a famous unit and work your way up through the ranks inside of that faction. You can also fight for territory. That's the best part. But it's not, instead of being active, it's passive. So what you're doing is by going into a match and playing with other people in your faction, you will actually affect the inner sphere, which is really cool. So it gets really exciting that every single match you participate in actually has relevance and meaning inside the inner sphere. Now then, the most participation comes from the guild players. These are the guys who want to create their own Merc Corp. They want to name it. They want to create their own ranks. They want to fight for very, very specific pieces of territory because they're going after like the high-end equipment. And those guys, they're going to fight for systems specifically. And this is really cool. So their organizational structure allows them to bring in their friends, their buddies, create companies and lances, and then schedule matches against other Merc Corps and fight for a system that will actually give them occupation rights over certain amounts of income or items or new mechs. And then that will also change the outlook of the inner sphere. What else we got? We are also bringing on some new stuff in lobby systems, which is going to help facilitate the coming of Community Warfare. Players are going to be able to jump into a pre-lobby where they'll be able to bring up to 4 mechs and some loadouts and some camo specs. And they'll be able to customize those things before they actually jump into the match. They'll be able to also vote on up to 3 or 4 different maps to drop in. So that gives the players more flexibility in what they bring, what kind of build they bring. It allows them to tailor these mechs and bring them on their dropship, their virtual dropship, and then select from those loadouts and those mechs before they go into the map. We also want to allow the players a little bit of customization so that they can actually choose their play space. So it's like, hey, we want to jump in and we want to play on a cold map. So if all of the people who are in that match lobby vote for it, they can go into that map. Yeah.
Okay, so this sort of pre-lobby that you're talking about, have you guys thought at all about a system where those players can mark up the map and sort of strategize ahead of time in that time before the match?
Yeah, we're trying to figure out a way to do that. The map will be available, so when you click on when the map's voted on, you'll be able to see the map ahead of time. In fact, we already have that currently. So when you jump, once the matchmaking is done and you're in the map, you have a kind of a pre-match screen where you can see all the players that you're gonna fight against and a little small map. We'd like to expand that to full screen so players can the commanders can kind of pre-set up where their lancers are gonna go. from now until the time we launch, we're actually adding the third lance, like Russ mentioned. With that comes some really cool controls. So there's now lance commanders, and so as opposed to just being the company commander, which we have now, you actually have 2 other lance commanders, and they can coordinate as well, along with the commander. So,
You guys have any plans for sort of increasing the incentive for players to take that role in the commander slot?
absolutely, we're really working on giving more bonuses, like EXP bonuses, for both the commander and the players. It's really important that the players work as a team. MechWarrior is about team play. If you go off on your own, you're really subject to being picked off. So those teams that play better together actually will have a better chance at winning. So we really want to encourage team play through rewards. And we've started to add those things, but once the command system is fully implemented, we'll actually give EXP and maybe even a C-bill boost to the commander and to the Lance teammates who follow those orders and are successful.
Great. Can you walk me through again? I mean, this is a really interesting thing when I was writing the cover story, introducing community warfare. So the relationship between the factions and the mercenary groups.
Well, the factions, because they're more of a passive play, they're not fighting for specific systems, they're fighting for fronts. So you're going to have opposing fronts, your home front and the enemy front. And so as say House Davian, and you're going up against House Kurita, what you're going to do is you're going to play a match that's going to be all House Davian versus an all House Kurita match. The results of that match will actually start flipping that front. Once that front is flipped to your control, you now gain a passive benefit, say an EXP bonus or a new item or access to new technology, and now you gain the benefit of controlling that front. And it's a constant state of attrition and constant warfare. So if your team decides, your faction decides not to play for a week, you're going to find most of your border fronts are going to be flipped, and now you're going to lose all those passive benefits. So it's really important, as just even a faction player, that you get online and you actually play the game and play with your teammates or your friends on behalf of your faction.
Okay, so outside of community warfare, I'm really curious about your guys' approach to balance. I think MechWarrior in particular is it's if you go on the forums, you can see almost anything in the game saying that it's overpowered, it's underpowered, it should be removed, it should be buffed. Single heat sinks should be thrown out of the game, things like that. So with all this feedback and all these different playing styles, how do you guys receive that, listen to that, filter that, and respond to that feedback about balance?
What we look for is kind of a balance between people saying it's good and it's bad, because that means we know it's about right. Everybody has a personal preference. Some people like missiles, some people like lasers, and they're always going to have an affinity for one or the other and complain about the other one being overpowered. So what we generally look for is a certain amount of noise in the community. If we see a topic coming up a lot, we know we have a problem and we need to look at it and address it. The problem's not always what the community thinks it is. As a good example, the ECM situation we have right now is not necessarily associated with ECM per se, although it's part of it, but also the type of mechs that have it and the fact that they were almost invulnerable for a period of time. So the underlying issue was actually to do with the fact players couldn't hit the mechs that were carrying ECM, and they created an imbalance. So we had to address that first. So our community is the canary. We really watch what they're doing and what they're saying and go, okay, well, what's the real problem here? And then we try to fix it and analyze it over time. Yeah.
Okay, so I remember back at E3 last year, it was a really interesting and pretty exciting announcement for me. I love joysticks. You guys sort of announced this prototype with Razer, the Artemis, that included a screen display, sort of like small keyboard extension. I'm curious if you have any update on the status of that, if it's gone beyond being a prototype.
It's still in the prototype phase. It hasn't gone beyond that. We fixed some underlying things with the joysticks within the game in a recent patch, and now we're starting to look at and re-examine what a joystick would look like inside of our product. The prototype that was on display at E3 was a very ambitious prototype, and it was really exciting. We're just trying to make sure that it's actually economical and we can actually produce it, and people would buy it. So, yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me quickly when you expect MechWarrior Online to reach other regions of the world and perhaps even launch on Steam? Will you launch on Steam in the summer?
Well, we're starting to look at Steam. I know it kind of got leaked out that we were putting it onto the Steam list. That was just because we've now talked to Steam, to Valve, and said, hey, we're interested. We have no official word on whether or not we're going to take it to Steam. We're just doing an evaluation, and it's quite common for us to evaluate all kinds of technologies, middlewares, platforms, things like that. So no official plans. As for going to other regions, we are working on that right now. It's really important to us to create local servers for our community to play on. We haven't fully decided how that's going to work. We're not sure if we're trying to avoid things like IP blocking and forcing people to play in their region, because our community doesn't like that, and we know that. And we're really trying to make sure we don't shard the server so that there's regional hubs. But it might come to that. We haven't decided on the final execution. That is coming in the next few months. So expect to hear more about regional partners before the end of summer.
Okay. One last thing. I'm curious. Cockpit games lend themselves to things like Oculus Rift. One of your competitors, Hawken, although it's a different type of mech game, is showing actually here on the floor in GDC. I'm curious if you guys have explored it, thought about it, if you've talked to Oculus directly, because I don't know, I like the idea of it.
We're very excited about it. My technical director, Matt Craig, he's been over there during the show, taking a look at it and coming back with all kinds of reports. I don't have anything official to announce about whether we're going to support it, but as with a lot of peripherals, we're taking our time with it and making sure it works with gameplay. From what I've heard, I haven't experienced it personally, that it's amazing and has some real potential to innovate gameplay. So we're excited to get our hands on some of the development kits and see what we can do with it. But that's it for now, yeah.
Okay, that's good to hear. Brian, thanks so much for your time. And if people want to check out MechWarrior Online themselves, where should they go?
They should go to MechWarrior.com or MWO Mercs. It's free to play, free to download. Just have to register an account, and that's it.
All right, thanks again.